Today, I'm speaking with Christina Senn-Jakobsen. Christina is a Swiss leader who has spent her career pushing for a better, more sustainable food industry. She currently is the CEO of the Swiss Food and Nutrition Valley, where she acts as a bridge between the world's most innovative startups, universities, and major corporations here in Switzerland and around Europe and the world. Her goal is to make sure that the food on our tables is healthier and better for the planet. While Christina works across the food spectrum, she is particularly well known for her work in dairy innovation. She understands that tradition and technology need to work together, a belief she put into action in 2022 when she led a massive project to help the Swiss dairy industry lower its carbon footprint. For Christina, it's all about finding practical ways to protect our environment without losing the quality of the food we love. Today, she joins us to share her journey of turning big ideas into real-world impact. Okay, welcome everybody to this issue of the webcast. Today I have Christina Senn-Jakobsen. Christina is the CEO of the Swiss Food and Nutrition Valley. She's going to tell us all about the initiatives there and what's got going on. Welcome, Christina. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for inviting me in, Daniel.
So before we start, maybe you want to give a little background to the people listening about who you are, what you've done in the past, and then we can get into what you're doing at the Food and Nutrition Valley.
Yes, who am I? I was born in Denmark, so I'm a Viking. Um, Studied food science and technology in Copenhagen and took a second master's at Wageningen in the Netherlands on European food summit studies. Then I joined Mondelez, a large corporate, for about 15 years in different positions, R&D, marketing, strategies, before I stepped out and start working with startups through an accelerator for a couple of years. And then I joined Swiss Food and Nutrition Valley 5 years ago. I live in Zurich, Switzerland, have been living in Switzerland the last 20 years, live downtown, have a terrace where I enjoy doing urban gardening.
Oh, fantastic. You're luckier than me. I also live in Zurich, but I have a garden, but not a terrace one. So that's great. Great to hear. Um, so why don't you tell us a little bit more then about the Food and Nutrition Valley, how it got started, what's the concept behind it? I mean, I know from my own experience in living here that it came into being slightly before you took over as the head, but you've been the head for quite a long time now, correct?
Yes, I've been with the Valley a bit more than 5 years, and it was inargued 5.5 years ago. But before that, there was, of course, also essential work done. It came about with the four entities coming together, also inspired from a visit to Silicon Valley, saying, imagine if we could build a valley in Switzerland, but with the focus on the food system. So that was two academic partners, one of our cantons, which is like the states in Switzerland, and one of the large enterprises. And this journey then went into where we are today, having more than 150 partners across the whole ecosystem. So we have a handful of large academic partners, we have a handful of large enterprises, we have more than 100 startups, research centers, gastronomy, retail, and anybody who plays a role, the cantons are partners, anybody who plays a role in the food ecosystem is welcomed in as partners in the Swiss Food Nutrition Valley. We're set up as an association, not for profit, so solely purpose driven. And the mission we drive is to unleash the Swiss innovation power to make our food system future-proof. Now, future-proof to us means it's a food system where we produce food within the planetary boundaries. It's where we produce food that makes people healthy and not sick. And it's a food system where we ensure prosperity, so healthy businesses. So people, planet, prosperity is the future proof that we're going for. So it's food system transformation. And we do that through collaboration. We very much believe this transformation is a team sport. It cannot be done one place. The responsibility cannot sit one place. It's the whole ecosystem that needs to work together to achieve these goals faster and better and make these goals resilient. So our values is around collaboration very much. It's also about commitment. And finally, it's courage. So that's what we ask for all our partners to step in with.
Great. And I mean, I live in Switzerland, as do you. I'm always happy and proud to hear about initiatives like this going on because I come from the U.S. and where you're from elsewhere in Europe. There's lots of people and countries doing these types of things. Is there anything that you think makes Switzerland a great place to do what you're doing with the Food and Nutrition Valley?
There's a long list. I think maybe starting where with the non-obvious, Switzerland is a small country. It's a tiny country, 9 million people. And I tend to say small country, but a large food nation. And that comes with we are very interconnected. So you have an amazing network contact here of getting in touch, whether it's with an industry partner, it's an academic partner, if it's a governmental office, it's the proximity is there, and you can almost just step in and have an exchange and have an alignment. Now, this is valuable because we have very strong players. We have world-ranked polytechnical universities, EPFL in Lausanne and ETH in Zurich. We have a lot of the large corporates in the food industry incorporated here. It's the homeland of Nestle, but we also have headquartering Tetra Pak. We have Bühler Machineries. We have Givaudan here, also the mother country, DSM Firmenich, and a lot of others. There's a thriving startup ecosystem, which is supported by the government, by InnoSwiss, and a lot of talent. I think talent nation number one, people are attracted to Switzerland for different reasons, be it the mountains and the skiing, be it the job opportunities, the safe political environment and economical environment, the attractive salaries, being surrounded by other great talents, it's very favorable in that. And then we're also rated as Innovation Nation number one for more than 15 consecutive years. So innovation thrives here. And I think these are some of the elements that makes this proximity even stronger, because we have very good ingredients in the kitchen, to use a food analog, and then the ability to cook with that and bring that together is really a stronghold for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that Switzerland punches above its weight, as you say, in many of these areas, and food is one of them. Pharma, of course, others, but I think food is not one that comes to mind necessarily, but it is true. That's great. And so you've got all these partners. Now, how is it that you focus on what you're trying to do differently? So a lot of innovation hubs or accelerators, they focus on what is the new technology, what is the thing that can be invested in, et cetera, because I think that's a commercial focus. But it seems like what you're doing is more it has like a slightly different bent on it, which is it's more of like a transformation of how do you change the way that companies work and think about this versus what is the technology or the thing that they're doing. And I think it's relevant because we're sort of in a period in the food innovation cycle where I think we're a little bit down right now because of the plant-based thing coming off the peak and much of the protein hype, although protein is a really big focus now. Protein, health, longevity, aging. I mean, all of these things I think are still continuing in force, but maybe it's not the same type of buzz we had in 2022 or so. So how is it that you're focusing on how these companies can work differently or approach their work differently versus just the pure technology?
Yeah. So I alluded to earlier that we're seeking this transformation of the food system and bringing it into one which really is good for planet and people and prosperity. And that the belief behind that, the culture, is the team sport, the collaboration. So one of our finest jobs is to bring these different entities together to indeed collaborate. This can have many forms and shapes, and that is something we try and identify new ways of doing so. But for us, it's important that everything we do and initiate in the Valley has a certain amount of our partners engaging in it. Um, Now, what is it exactly that we try to do with this partner? It is more than anything giving this innovation, which is the vehicle for the transformation, but give that an opportunity to scale. Because if we look at the transformation as a three-step initiative, we need to know what the challenges are. And then we need to develop solutions. And I would say on a global basis, on a Swiss basis with the food system, we're doing pretty well. We know a lot about the challenges of the environment caused by the food system. We know a lot about the health challenges caused by our diets. We also know and have developed, and on a large extent, thanks to startup, solutions for that, ways that we can do better and do different and address these things. Now, where we're failing, not just in Switzerland, but globally, is bringing that to scale where we see true impact. And why is that so difficult? Well, these three steps, they have different price tags. Doing a research project is maybe around $1 million, euros, Swiss francs, whichever currency. Developing a startup to solution is anything between 1 and 99 million, let's say that. But scaling a solution, we are then in the billions. We're no longer talking millions, really to roll out an innovation solution for chains. And there is not an obvious taker of that one. Research we do at the academic partners and industries, solutions come from startups and industries, but scaling it, who's going to pay that billion or those billions? We don't really know. So we're not scaling. And then there's actually one step after that saying we're doing nothing. And that's where we will see what we are seeing, the climate change and the destructive causes of that, loss of harvest, people need to migrate, and much more the unemployed as the health system costs skyrocketing and here that has also been measured up by economists, and here we're talking trillions. So for the
Mhm.
longest time, I was thinking, who's going to pay these trillions? And can't we motivate them to get a bargain here and just pay the billions? But the thing is, the trillions, they come out of our tax money. That is like where we support all these things. And it's so remote from the individual citizens that we cannot even comprehend that. And nor can we take initiative to change it. And that's where, long journey, I know, Daniel, but that's where I see, okay, what can we do if we all step up to scaling the solutions? And that's what we need to do together. It's not the job of the big food industry. It's not the job of the government to be all restrictive and so on. It's not the job alone of the individual citizens. It's a shared responsibility where everybody needs to do what's in their power. And we need to have the dialogue and say, okay, where do we start? Let's start with this transformation. Good. We're getting on track. We're scaling. And then we go to the next. Can you follow me on this?
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting and kind of daunting problem because we work in consumer insights at FlavorWiki, and at the end
Yeah.
of the day, the food companies, they have a stock price, they need to be competitive, they have all of these pressures on their near-term success. And essentially, what they're good at doing is responding to the desires of the consumer sentiment, right? Like, what does the consumer want? What do they want to buy, et cetera, et cetera. And so, shaping the desire of the consumer is one problem that they would face. But then you're right. You're right. Like, someone has to jump first to start to make these investments and figure out how are we going to kind of come along this continuum. And some countries, I believe, are more well suited than others. Here in Switzerland, I think it's a really fantastic. I mean, it's a luxury that we have that much food is produced locally, right? Like, okay, you can talk about a lot of fruits and things that are still coming from Southern Europe, but the government takes steps to protect its local farmers. And the people are able to pay the prices to purchase from those local farmers. But you see that the supply chain is much shorter than, say, it would be in the United States. And so we weren't affected as much by inflation of food prices like during the after the Ukraine war. So these are all sort of part of being more integrated as a self-sustaining and I think sustainable food ecosystem. But still, we have plenty of packaged products and products that aren't great for you and things like this here in Switzerland. So I think it's a challenging issue that,
Mhm.
every big corporate like the one you also used to work for will face is that they have a profit responsibility, and at the same time they have ultimately their responsibility to the consumers, you know,
Yeah.
consumers' desires.
However, I think it's times are changing, and marketing as we know it in the 80s and 90s is not there. Today it's behavioral science. And hiding behind this statement, we produce what the consumers want. Whether you are a food producing company or you are a farmer association, that doesn't work today, in my opinion, Daniel. With the
Tell me,
knowledge
tell me,
we
tell me, tell me why. Tell me why you think that
this
doesn't work.
is a matter of responsibility. We cannot ask the consumers to know what we know. And what we know is what food processing systems are damaging the environment. We know which food items are hurtful to us and which, on the other hand, is profitable or beneficial for us. And giving that responsibility to the citizen, which has other daily worries and priorities, it needs to be affordable, it needs to be great tasting foremost, and it needs to have a convenient element to it, not just by cooking, but when I grab it, it should be in the store, it should be there, all that. These are the three things that we can ask of the citizens. They want it tasty, they want it cheap, they want it convenient. And then it's our responsibility, the food system, including the producers, the farmers, the government, the retailers, that we make sure that those that are good for the world and good for the body, they A, meet these three things. Is there an element of education? Yes. But we also know with the media today, social media and whatever, there's also a lot of confusion going on. I remember in the 80s when I was a kid and the girlfriend's mom was on a diet. She ate bread with butter and cheese because she was on a diet. So she would just have a cheese sandwich.
Mhm.
Today it's like ding, the opposite. Then you couldn't eat eggs because of the cholesterol. Then we found out the cholesterol was not a problem anyway, but you shouldn't eat meat. And then we went, oh, the meat is actually okay to eat, but except if you want to save the world, then you should. It's very confusing being a consumer with
Mhm.
the science and the pseudoscience that we also bring out. So that's why I say we cannot hide behind the answer. We just produce what the citizens want. Yes, we need to make sure the businesses are profitable. Otherwise, we have a short sight. If they don't make money, they die out. So they need to be
Mhm.
profitable, but we need to make them profitable and also carry the sustainability and the health responsibility. So, and I think when we say this is not you're on your own, it's something we will team up on. It's something where the government will incentivize these actions. It's something where the retailers will put these products at the checkout and the front shelf and support it. Then then we can come a far way. And that comes back to the whole thing about let's work together, let's collaborate to do this.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's difficult for the commercial organization to say, I'm going to go first. And so I'm interested to hear what you believe the role of regulation might have to play in this eventually. Because at the end of the day, if I'm, I won't use names, large company conglomerate A versus large company conglomerate B, I'm competing in these spaces. Some of these categories are very, very competitive. If they're going to take steps towards being more forward thinking in some of these issues, there will be a cost there. And usually the producer will bear it first because they can't push that onto the consumer. And so at some stage, how do you get them to cooperate without the influence of a governmental regulation to do that?
Mm. I think what regulation does more than anything is that it gives this even level playing field so
Mm,
that the company that wants to do good is not punished and lose out on business because the other one can just say, we don't care, we just want that. So I think that's where regulation is supportive. regulation can also be supportive in having a very innovation-friendly legal framework at hand where we can introduce new foods types and ingredients type that is more better for the environment and for the people. And incentives in terms of changing portfolio. We're talking about sugar taxes and so on. But what about the other way around? What about incentivizing fiber enrichment, for example, in certain
Yeah.
things? I also think, as I said, there's an element of educating the citizens, which we try with the food pyramids and these different guidelines, but often people look into that once that they have become sick. I I have a really good example of visiting the Google office here in Zurich, where I visited them about 10 years ago. And Google have these really cool coffee stations on all their floors, which is like back then, 10 years ago, you had any soft drink you wanted with Red Bull or Coca-Cola, whatever you needed, chocolate bars, crisp Pringles, fuel up,
Comfort
get
foods, all the nice
comfort
stuff. Yeah.
food. I need a lift me up. I'm tired, yeah. So nice of them, but not very healthy for the employees, actually. Then I visited them again last year, and the coffee stations were still there beautifully on each floor with the island, and it was full of goodies. But this time, it was jugs of water with a carrot or with a lemon in. It was balls of nuts. It was fruit. It was fiber crackers. And then there was this fancy water machine where you could put the temperature and how much sparkling you wanted it, and if you needed a pre-sport or post-sport booster, or you needed to lift me up or calm me down or whatever flavor to it, something for you guys,
Mm.
which was really calorific, fascinating. And I then asked, "Where's the Coca-Cola and the chocolate bars?" And oh, we still have it, but it's three steps over in this dented behind this dented glass, and there you
Mhm.
open a fridge full of Coca-Cola. By
Mhm.
moving it three steps away, and every employee knows that the Coca-Cola is over there, the Coca-Cola consumption had dropped 60%.
Oh, and they even measure this.
Yeah,
Of course, they know they're stocking it.
they
Yeah.
measured this.
Yeah.
So what is it? It's the employees saying, "Oof, I need a break now before my next meeting, and I'm thirsty." I walk to the station, I talk with a colleague, and I'm thirsty, so I take a glass of water. It's right there in front of me. I'm not saying I need a Coca-Cola. Well, maybe I do one day and then I take it. But it's also this subconscious supporting people to make the right choices because
Mhm.
I quench my thirst. I'm happy. I take some nuts where I get some good stuff into my body, and I don't have this glucose spike and dip where I start sleeping at my desk afterwards. So
Right.
yeah, there's a lot we can do, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great example. It's basically what do you put in front of people, and at the end of the day, you don't really choose what you eat. Your grocery retailer chooses what you eat because they choose what they put in the shelf.
72,
Right.
Daniel, 72% of the shopping decisions on food happens in store.
Yeah.
72%. So exactly what I grab in is what is there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I agree with you. Those things can be incentivized, but they can also just be thought leaders. It depends upon the market that you're in, obviously. I think if
Mhm.
you go to Northern California and places like this, like that, you see a lot more of these, healthy forward products because, of course, the ecosystem there is more focused on that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and in Switzerland
Maybe
it's coming, but if you go to a rural grocery store, you see a little bit different mix than if you're in downtown Zurich. So I think it's also, again, it's what the consumer is looking to get. Ultimately, people need to make a business, but you're right, you can gradually sort of educate and change. Food habits take a long time to change. They're generational, right? You know, yeah,
they do, and we need to support it in the best way we can. Personal example here, there's a reason why I try not to keep chocolate at home, because if I have it here, I eat it. And if I
Mhm.
don't have it here, I don't eat it. So
Yeah.
it's about these things. And another example, which is maybe more on the environmental side of the food system, is what
Mm.
we see now in the Netherlands, and Amsterdam, as the first capital ever, now decided that putting up billboards promoting meat consumption is illegal.
Mhm.
And here we have a bit of a dilemma in beautiful Switzerland because we actually support with our tax money billboards on consuming Swiss meat, even though we have a government advice on reducing it, not eliminating it, but reducing the meat consumption. So you see,
Well, consuming Swiss meat, maybe not meat in general, but I agree. At the end, the message becomes kind of diluted. I mean, the Netherlands has also been a huge leader in the behaviors around recycling, right? This is another thing that you see when you go there, that everybody recycles and the recycling is very strict and dramatic, right? So I
yeah,
think that's so. What are some of the things that you do as the Food Nutrition Valley to promote these types of changes besides collaborating with your partners? Are there ways in which you're experimenting with different types of messaging, ways in which you can, get to the consumer or to the governments? What are ways in which you've sort of learned that you can better influence the way that these types of things are promoted in the economy?
yeah. So one of the things we do is we bring together the ecosystem on topics, be it on precision nutrition or um, food side streams, be it on regenerative farming or sustainable packaging. And by bringing them together and providing the latest knowledge on the topic, build a sub ecosystem so they get to know who is who and who is in this topic and foster their collaboration. So I'd say a lot of the connections that is then happening in the valley, the actions continues outside the valley.
Mhm.
We also have some lighthouse initiatives. We have one on nutrition for metabolic health. And this one has to do with that in Switzerland, we have one of the highest per capita health costs, also due to being a very expensive.
It's the third highest in the world, I think,
Yeah,
beside behind the U.S. and Japan. I think it's by what I've heard.
there you go. And that in spite of the Swiss population actually having the lowest BMI of all of Western Europe and being very sporty in the mountains. And so our health costs are high, more than 100 billion Swiss francs last year. 70% of that is related to what we call non-communicable diseases. So these are things like diabetes 2, 50% of the cancer types, cardiovascular diseases, which is the biggest killer, actually. And then the hidden disease, mental health. So be it Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, but also anxiety and and others. And here, food has the opportunity to be the biggest lever on that. So we put up an initiative here, which we're just about to launch, collaborating with the health insurance business and bringing together indeed everybody who's somebody to see what can we try out in small living labs, Genba labs, we call them orbits,
Mhm.
to drive change, to support and empower citizens to have access to better nutrition. So in small collaborative groups with experiments between 3 and 12 months, we will find out which mechanism works. Is it redesigning the checkout counter? Is
Mhm.
it for a company's employees to wear a continuous glucose monitor and have
Mhm.
offerings in the canteen that supports their they're lowering their number of spikes and the size of the spikes? Is it around doctors' education? Uh, because we know that doctors they do not receive a lot of nutrition education during their 5 to 8 years of studies. It's on average
Mhm.
2 hours in the curriculum that they have to. And yet you can eat your way to health. And we know more and
Mhm.
more about that. So there are many different things we can set in. And based on that knowledge, then every year, the next 3 years, we will have a summit where these orbit results will be shared and hopefully inspire others to pick up or one or the other orbit. And why is this one so interesting? You mentioned earlier on that we see a shift where the sustainability conversation and positioning is silencing, going down. But on the other
Mm,
hand, we see the nutrition, the health conversation going up, be it longevity, be it anything else. And it's
mm,
because there's so much to win for everybody. It's
mm,
personal. It's your health, it's your life, it's your sleep, it's your energy, it's the number of times you laugh. And food can
mm,
influence that. For
mm,
the employer, it's the productivity. A lot of us sit and sleep in the afternoon or are very tired and whatever because we've had high sugar spike lunch or we're snacking or whatever. We can be much more alert and productive if we have good diet. It's the health cost, whether that is the one carried through our taxes by the government or through our insurance payment.
mm,
It's there's so much to win here. And even, on the farmer side, consuming more good vegetables and stuff. And and that what makes this initiative that we're doing now over the next 3 years really interesting for a lot of partners and also for the government. Maybe a third example, what we do have increased dialogues with the federal offices, be it a Federal Office of Agriculture or the Federal Office of Veterinary and Food Safety, and
mm.
also here speak the voice of our partners on what are potential optimizations or focuses, what we can do together to drive innovation and for driving the mission of future-proofing our food system. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that sounds fantastic because then you hopefully will share those learnings across other retail chains and I think that yeah, I mean, again, being in the insights industry, companies typically don't invest in research that doesn't ultimately flow through to more selling, right? Like they don't typically go out of their way to determine how can you change the way that the consumer is behaving and what their interests are, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's valuable.
Yeah. So these Gemba labs, they're not that big in the number of people that we can refer to it as actual research. It's more like indications. And our biggest goal is to drive awareness because I think there is still too many out there who today are unaware of the impact of your diet on your quality of life. There's a lot of talk about, more life in your years when you're 70, 80, 90, the whole longevity dialogue. But this is about when you're 14, when you're 25, when you're 35. How much do you sleep and how well do you sleep? How much are you alive? How much are you in the mood to move? How well do you think? And it's the quality of life right now, and that is what I think needs a whole lot more awareness. Why is this not on the school curriculum? Why do our children need to learn to read and write and do the math, but they do not learn to look after themselves, the planet, and the quality of life? I think that should be in the curriculum as the number one, if you ask me.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, I have children too, and I mean, you hope to give them that at home, but not everyone gets that type of education, nor is the data available. And maybe we should quickly talk about data. Is that you mentioned there's a lot of noise out there in the media. I mean, we all read the news, and every so often some sort of interesting piece of research comes up, but I guess that's where it ends. It's interesting, and it's very difficult to substantiate the trust that you can have in media or even in publications that come um, from companies or universities, and how does that impact you? So I think that what is the role that you think that just provision of information and data can play towards generating more trust in some of these ideas?
Yeah, I think overall we're in a good place here in 2026 with um, the ability to collect data, share data, and apply AI in getting better, quicker understanding, and also with less data points than going forward, knowing better what to do. So there we're at a good point. The problem or challenge, however, that I see with when it comes to nutrition research and data is that in the vast majority of the studies, the nutrition does not work isolated. So we go in and take more of a lifestyle study, and we say, okay, yes, this person lowered the consumption of meat to this, and that, but we don't take into all the other accounts. It was because this person was also interested overall in health and didn't smoke and exercise, and so the data is not isolated. We should go in really on the cell based and how our metabolism works on that
Mm.
level, and study it to see. And that is starting to come with the whole thematic about insulin resistance and what that actually does to our body, and how that potentially is the key to unlocking a healthy nutrition. But that's for another talk, maybe. It's a big
Yeah, it's a very big
yeah. So the
problem
challenge
from a
is that
yeah.
we don't have razor sharp
Mm.
studies, if you ask me. Yeah.
So even the data is lacking in terms of like
Yeah,
conclusive.
but why do you find so many studies saying coffee is healthy for you, and you find the equal amount of studies saying coffee is unhealthy for you? It's
Mm.
because it could be healthy for one person and unhealthy for the other. It's because the coffee consumption is not isolated from everything else that person does or doesn't do.
Mhm.
So, mm, it's a difficult one.
Okay. And so then what is your hope that you can of what you can produce out of the Food Nutrition Valley, say like in the next 3 to 5 years, and how you might be able to scale that to the ecosystem? I agree with you. The Swiss environment of collaboration, you mentioned InnoSwiss. I think it's a fantastic organization, and everything that Switzerland does around not only innovation but also supporting SMEs in their internationalization efforts. I think this is it's just very unique, at least in my experience, and the collaboration you can have directly with cantons and universities. So what's one thing that you would hope that you could export from that learning to the rest of the world, either via your multinational partners or in other ways?
One thing I hope we will become even better at is to work systemically. We're on a good way here, but the challenge is through, and again, generation, whatever, we've all been raised to zoom in on the problem, analyze it, and do what we can do. And what we need everybody to do is lift up and take a look now and then of this bigger system we're all a part of, and relate to that and see, okay, in the systemic approach, what is my role? What do I have to do? But also with who do I need to engage more and exchange and align and agree? Because that is still something that we need to become better at. And how do we become better at that? It's training the muscle, and it's by bringing success stories. And that is what I hope we will do through the Valley. We will bring forward success stories where partners have done exactly that, and through that solved a challenge and scales on a solution, and done that faster than they could ever have done alone, and more secure than they could ever have done alone. Because if they'd done it alone, they would have been set back on one side or the other. Bringing the knowledge out of the academic labs into the startups, scaling it with the corporates, getting the alignment of the governmental frameworks, the legal frameworks, getting the retailers on board who holds the key to
Mhm.
unlocking it to the citizens, as well as the gastronomy, the chefs, um, all that play together. That is what we need, some more success stories. And everybody will say, okay, that's how we're going to do more of in the future.
Yeah,
Keeping the
yeah.
competitiveness. I'm not saying we do. Competitiveness is healthy, but
Mm.
yeah. So changing the how is what I hope we will achieve.
Yeah, yeah, and I agree with you. We need organizations like that to help stimulate the profit maximizing organizations we have. I mean, it's a capitalist world, and we've
Yeah.
gotten pretty good at that. I think when it comes to profit maximization, you're right. We're trained well to do that part. Um, yeah, cross collaboration and leadership and continuous learning of how to operate our organizations is probably something we could do better.
Yeah.
We could have better leadership in some of our big governments too, but we won't go into that topic, right? So hopefully we set the standard in Switzerland, even if it's a small country. Well, great. Well, I'm looking forward to the annual meeting next month, or to the conference, and hope to meet some more of your partners. And this is great to learn more about it. And we'll be putting the information about you and where people can contact for either membership or ideas on the website. And
Yeah, because we also
absolutely.
have, if I, we have every month we have an online session called Meet the Valley, where
Okay.
anybody from anywhere in the world is welcome to dial in and learn
Okay.
about Switzerland, the Swiss ecosystem, and the valley, what we do and why we do it, and have an exchange with others who've dialed in. It's usually a ton of fun. We have everything from students to ministers to housewives too, but it's mainly ecosystem people from around the world dialing in, and everybody's welcome to join us there.
That's awesome. I'd love to check that out. Do you post that online? Do you email a newsletter? Or how do people find out about when it's happening?
Yeah, we post it on the LinkedIn, and we have it in our on our webpage
Okay.
under events. It's there, but
Okay.
we should probably post a bit more. Mm.
Okay. Yeah, I'm interested to check that out too. Great.
Yeah,
Well, thank you very much. I wish you a great weekend, and it's going to be good
thank
weather, so hopefully that you'll get outside and enjoy. And
it
talk to you
is.
soon. Yeah.
I will be planting the tomatoes and the cucumbers in the boxes this weekend, so I'm very much looking forward to connect with Mother Earth and the food system in a different way. So thank you very much, Daniel, for having me, and looking forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks as well.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Christina. Have a great one. Thank you.
Thank you. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.